Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I hope you all can hear me. I'm going to do a check for those people in the back of the auditorium. We're good. Welcome to our audience tonight. Welcome to our candidates. This is the Bothell Kenmore Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the candidates for Kenmore City Council. My name is Eric Murray. I will be the moderator tonight. I'm up here in the front left of the auditorium. And I am the president of Cascadia College. And in case you're unaware, Cascadia, while we're located in Bothell, serves the general region. We serve the cities of Kenmore, Bothell, Woodinville, Redmond, and Kirkland. So on behalf of the college, I'm happy to be here to assist with hosting tonight's event. And I also want to take a moment out to appreciate a couple of other entities that have helped us with everything tonight. First, Bastyr University for offering us the location to hold this candidates forum. We've done this several times in a row now, and so we appreciate the university for being a great civic partner and helping us. Also want to thank the Chamber for their part in providing opportunities like this. Last night we also did a candidates forum for the Bothell City Council, and the Bothell Kenmore Chamber was responsible for organizing that as well. We've done this many times in a row, and it's an opportunity for the Chamber to help our constituents and our public become more aware of what the candidates have to offer us as we decide who to vote for this coming November. So thank you to the Chamber for organizing everything. I want to give a shout out to my colleague Ryan McIrvin from UW-Bothell, who's in charge of legislative and community affairs, and he helped with the leadership team to structure tonight's event and the questions that you're going to be hearing. I need to do a couple of minutes of introduction of how the forum works, so that way the candidates understand how things will progress. It's a little interesting. I'm talking to the audience and to you, so I'm going to be doing a lot of back and forth here tonight. But I want to make sure you're aware of how we're going to proceed. Before we get to that, I want to introduce the candidates for position 1, Suzanne Greenhouse. Welcome, Suzanne, and Melanie O'Kane. Glad that you're both here. Milton Curtis for position 3 is running unopposed, so you'll get to hear his perspectives, and no candidate to offer anything else. So we'll just see if you like it anyway.
We'll keep it short.
Okay. And then for position 7, we have Karina Lau and Van Sperry. Welcome to both of you as well. David Baker, who is currently the mayor of Kenmore and on city council, is position 5. He's also running unopposed, and he had a previous engagement that couldn't be canceled, which was scheduled before tonight's event. So he is missing from the platform tonight. So we're going to begin this forum in a few minutes with an introductory statement by each of our candidates. You'll have 2 minutes to tell us just a little bit about yourself, how long you've lived in Kenmore, why you're running for city council. After that, we're going to have a series of different kinds of questions. Some of our questions you'll have 2 minutes to answer. Some of our questions you'll have 1 minute to answer. We're also going to do a lightning flash round where you just say yes or no to the question. It's the hardest thing actually for the candidates because sometimes questions are not just yes or no. We'll be rotating through each of the candidates. I'm going to go in a bunch of different orders to make sure everybody has the opportunity to start some kind of question first. And some of our questions are thematic, meaning we'll talk about transportation, for example, as one theme, but the different positions will have a different question to answer underneath the theme of transportation, as an example. And I'll guide you through all that as we go. We have had the opportunity over the last few weeks to gather questions from the community via social media and our online presence. And I'd like to invite any of the audience members today, if you have a question during the first hour of the forum that you'd like to be posed to our candidates, there are white cards, where? All the way in the back. You can go grab an index card and turn it into the basket. When the hour comes around, we'll be collecting those cards from the basket and sifting through those questions. And we may be able to weave, if we have enough time, 1 or more of them into tonight's presentation. We have a timekeeper. It is my colleague Mike, who here in the front row. He is an expert at this. And when your 30-second mark comes up, you only have 30 seconds left, he will do this. You might want to be watching him as you're talking, because when your time is up, he will do this. And I will politely cut you off mid-sentence. I had to do this a couple times last night. So just be prepared for that. Watch Mike's signal, and we'll keep you on track for tonight. For the audience, this is an opportunity for you to listen intently to the candidates. This is not a debate. We are not having the candidates square off against each other or question each other's position. We're asking you to give your own position, how you would handle it. The chamber believes in a respectful community environment. We're not looking to throw anyone under the bus. We're simply looking to hear how each candidate responds to a specific topic and a specific question. And so your rules are to stay to the task and answer those questions. And for the audience, we ask through the course of the evening, we don't want applause. We don't want to bias the forum tonight for one candidate or another. We just simply ask that you listen. And if you want to participate, fill out a card, and we'll see if we can get that question into the mix tonight. So I appreciate you helping us with the way we format the forum. And I think that is all of my introductory remarks. You ready to go? You think? Okay. Audience ready to go? Yeah. In case anyone's interested, this will also be videoed tonight, and it will be on the Chamber's website. So if you'd like to promote your answers or your candidacy, you're welcome to link people to the Chamber website and have them watch tonight together. All right. So we're going to begin with introductory remarks. Melanie, I'm going to change this up. We're going to start with Suzanne. We can go down the table for introductory remarks. When we do closing remarks, Dan, you'll start and come back down the table the other way. But for opening remarks, Suzanne, you're going to start. And you have 2 minutes. We would like you to talk about how long you've lived in Kenmore, how you've been involved in the community, and maybe your vision for the city. Oh, before you start, that just reminded me, I'd like everybody to silence their cell phones, please. Appreciate that. Had the same reminder yesterday. Now we'll get to it. How long you lived in Kenmore, your vision for the city, while you're running for council? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I grew up in an Army family, and we traveled quite a bit. Every couple of years we moved to a new location. As a kid, I thought that was a lot of fun. To keep us balanced, my mother always said that you needed to thrive where you're planted, to bloom where you're planted. That's always been good advice, and it helped me throughout a lot of my challenges. When I moved to Anacortes and was a co-owner of a struggling motel, I took the initiative to open a bike shop and do bike rentals in order to pay our rent during the off-season. When I found myself as a single mother with 2 kids in grad school with no income, I created curriculum for engineering and business writing and contracted with corporations and universities so that I could support the kids and we could move to a safe neighborhood. After that, I got a job at AT&T, and I managed national projects that had multi-million-dollar budgets and very tight timelines. As a result of that, I was able to send my kids to college. During that time, I was also asked to turn around an IT department. During that time, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer. She passed away 3 years ago, and at that time I wasn't sure if I'd be able to bloom where I was planted. I found myself in Kenmore and decided to dedicate my energies to Kenmore, and that was 10 years ago. And I've been here engaged in the community, in the Chamber, Planning Commission, Senior Center, Heritage Society, and a variety of other organizations.
Thank you, Suzanne. Melanie, you have 2 minutes to tell us how long you've lived in Kenmore, how you've been involved in the community, and your vision for Kenmore.
Okay. Hi. I grew up here. I went to Arrowhead Elementary, North Shore Junior High, and Inglemoor High School. I'm a UW grad. I lived in Seattle for most of my adult life. 3 years ago, I returned to Kenmore with my kids. My daughter's going to Inglemoor High School, and my son's going to North Shore Middle School. And I'm really thankful they get to grow up here just like I did. I've worked for the Port of Seattle in public service for 19 years. It's the economic engine for our region. The majority of my time at the port has been in the accounting and financial reporting department, where our core values are accuracy, integrity, and transparency in government. These are values I want to bring to the council. Environmental stewardship, sustainable development, community and equity are core values that I'm running on. And with sustainable development, what I want to bring is traditional development patterns, which are scientifically proven, based upon historical evolution of cities and human psychology. It's pretty cool stuff. I actually get really excited about it, but I won't go too deep. The cool thing about it is it's good for small business, it's good for building community, good for the environment, and financially sound. One of the biggest reasons I'm running is for my kids, and actually their friends, and my family members, and people I actually keep meeting along the way while I'm running. I want them to know how important their voices are, and that they can serve too. So, anyway. Yeah, that's really the big piece, is I want to show my kids what it means to engage in government. Thank you.
Bill, 2 minutes for your introductory statement.
So first I want to thank the citizens of Kenmore for allowing me to serve the last 12 years. I joke that as long as I'm having fun and learning new things, I'll just keep signing up for the job, as long as the people will keep voting for me. I've been in Kenmore for 29 years. I was a family medicine doctor for 35 years. Officially retiring from clinical care 2 years ago, but now I'm working on falls prevention. So I still have the desire to help people. I just got worn out by that computer. I was spending more time looking at the computer than looking at people. So I said, nope, this isn't fun. I'm gonna do something different. I've had the privilege during my 12 years of working on things such as improving 522, building a city hall, creating a downtown with a town square, focus on bike and pedestrian safety, improving city parks. And we've invested over 100 million of grant money, so other people's money that they gave to Kenmore for us to use wisely, and we've invested it in our city in many different ways. I believe that growth is the biggest challenge facing Kenmore. It affects density, housing costs, transportation, downtown parking. Kenmore is predicted to grow to 40,000 people by 2040. They will come. We'll either have them come organized or we'll have them come chaotic. That's the job of the council, to set that policy and direction. I think we need most of that growth to be along 522 and maintain our single family neighborhoods. I love citizen input. I actually enjoy doing the coffee with councils on Saturday morning. What our citizens tell us is so important for us to make our city better. So I think in the 21 years since we've incorporated, Kenmore is becoming a more desirable city every single year.
Thank you very much. Karina, 2 minutes for your introductory statement.
Hello, I'm Karina File, running for Kenmore City Council, position 7. And first I want to thank both the Bothell Kenmore Chamber of Commerce and Bastyr for hosting this event tonight, and for everybody coming on out. It's a wet night, and I really appreciated that you're embracing citizen engagement. I've lived in Kenmore for 30 years, or well, nearly 30 years. I first moved to Kenmore when I was 19 to go to college. I stayed here, fell in love with the community, and couldn't imagine living anywhere else. And I later got married here, bought my first home up near Arrowhead, and had 2 beautiful children who are now 22 and 18, Jonathan and Skylar. And I mostly raised my 2 on my own these last 15 years. I'm a behavioral and social health services undergrad, pre-public health. I have 18 years experience in dental and medical field with patient coordinated care, quality caregiver management, and managing offices. I'm also very experienced in policy and legislation, and have served on numerous nonprofit boards for child advocacy organizations as a legislative advocate. And my vision for Kenmore is really to represent the people and citizens of Kenmore on issues that are concerns to them. Because that's the job of a council member, is not just to promote one's own issues, but to represent the people on their issues and concerns. So I appreciate the reminder. So a thriving economy, that ensuring that we have a thriving, sustainable economy with the development. We have a lot of eyes on Kenmore and the next 4 years of major development. And we can do that with a thoughtful, mindful growth mindset. Affordable housing, we have a housing crisis and we really need to address that 40 to 60% of mean, the 30% for seniors, and safe, walkable, connected neighborhoods. Thank you.
And Van, you get to round this up.
Okay. I'm Ben Sperry. I came to Kenmore at the age of 6. Parents moved out here. I lived, it was still called Kenmore at that time, although we were part of the greater Bothell area. I went to Arrowhead Elementary, Kenmore Junior High, graduated from Inglemoor High School. So my adult years away from Kenmore, mostly in Seattle, lived in Wichita, Kansas, which I liked almost better than Kenmore. My wife, I've always had a love for this neighborhood, for this area. Have always been drawn back to it. I finally came back in 1991 with my wife. We settled in Kenmore, and we have lived in the same house for 29 years. I was partly involved with the formation of Kenmore when we were arguing about when there's a debate about whether we would allow gambling in the city, and spent a few times testifying before the city council. I eventually went on and got my master's degree in public policy. I've always been interested in the fight of politics. I've also been aghast, I guess, at the lack of logical, reasonable debates that has been going on. I see my job here at the City Council as to represent the people of Kenmore. We are not to be representing a vehicle for special interests from Olympia or other organized interests. We are here for the people of Kenmore. And I hope to be that voice. We also, as City Council members, we do speak to other departments. I know Milton, perhaps, I know Mayor Baker's gone back to Washington, D.C. several times for grant money, etc. So.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for providing those introductory remarks. We're now going to move on to our first series of questions. The questions all have something to do with either the community or housing in the community. And we are going to start with position 7, which is Van and Karina. Van, you're actually going to begin the series with the question. I'll ask the question in just a second. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to this question as well, and I'm going to read it twice. How would you describe the role of City Council in building collaborative relationships with local partners, such as Cascadia College, UW Bothell, North Shore Senior Center, or the Chamber of Commerce? I'll read it one more time. How would you describe the role of City Council in building a collaborative relationship with local partners, such as Cascadia, UW Bothell, the Senior Center, the Chamber of Commerce?
Yep. I feel those collaborative relationships are absolutely essential. We need input from all the organizations that are part of Kenmore and somehow involved in this area, in this region. I think we need a very clear voice to communicate and mediate between the people in those organizations, and to state very clearly what the issues are. There is Kenmore, the City Council must be a voice and a communication and a link between all these organizations and the people of Kenmore. There are a lot of different factions, there are a lot of different views, and it is up to the City Council often to come and develop some kind of a consensus. A consensus doesn't mean that we all agree necessarily, but we all don't disagree to the point of blood. And that can take a lot of debate, and public input is absolutely necessary for that. And input from the organizations, as mentioned, are also vital.
Thank you. Karina.
partnerships are really important to a thriving community. And we have to do that by encouraging a partnership with our stakeholders and our local, regional, and statewide partners. We are all interdependent upon each other, and we need each other to grow and thrive beautifully and well together. And we have to protect our finite resources, like our state parks and our waterfront and our habitats, and grow and thrive. To do that, we have to really facilitate mindful conversations and come together in agreement. Sometimes, yes, there are differences, but when we come together at the table and negotiate those differences, we can move forward together. And I think that's the most important critical part to working with our partners. We see that with North Shore Schools, and our state senators work on working with Kenmore and North Shore to ensure that we have a boat launch here that partners with our school district and students who are interested in crew, now an equitable sport. And we do that with our parks and our fire departments. And I think that as we continue forward, that progress will continue to take a growth mindset that we can collaborate on beautifully and grow together. Thank you.
Thank you. I realize that my microphone is providing a little bit of feedback when your microphones are on, so I'm switching mine on and off to make sure we can avoid that. Remind me if I don't turn mine back on at some point. We're going to move next to also a question within the community and a housing theme. Milton, you'll get to answer this one. Delays in permitting can add significantly to the cost of housing and opening or expanding a business, which then can be passed on to the consumer, those increased costs. What, if anything, can be done to expedite or streamline the current permit review process? You have 2 minutes.
I would say at the high level, you're accurate that permitting in some cities does slow down growth. But Kenmore has one of the best reputations in the Puget Sound, and we're one of the few fastest at getting people through our system. When I came 20 years ago, when you went to City Hall, the answer, well, we didn't have a City Hall, or barely did. The answer felt like it was no, here's the rules. But over time, it's how can we make this work for you? Yes, we have laws that we have to obey, but how can we make this work for our citizens? So I don't think our permitting department is an obstacle to people making changes and improvements in Kenmore.
Thank you very much. Different question for position 1. Melanie, you'll go first in this. Again, you'll have 2 minutes each. Affordable housing and homelessness have been an ongoing challenge facing our region. What are some strategies you might bring to the table to help better address this issue? I'll say the question again. Affordable housing and homelessness have been an ongoing challenge facing our region. What are some strategies you might bring to the table to help better address this issue?
Affordability is a major issue, especially given the income stratification that we live in today, the economic boom, and the impact on housing prices. Homelessness is a regional issue, and it's one that we do need to work with our partners. I'm glad to hear that King County and Seattle are working together to form a bridge to address homelessness. As far as strategies go, I will say affordability is something that's also impacted me directly. So I do recognize the importance of this issue. Understanding that we need to have low-income when we're building mixed-use housing for BRT, for example, for the bus rapid transit, that we have affordable housing built into those units at a lower mean, so at 30 to 50% of mean rather than just 80% of mean, to create access there. I think it's really important for us to partner with Mary's Place and other charitable organizations, philanthropies, to help meet the needs. Our responsibility in the city is to make sure that people have shelter and are able to thrive. So when people do, no one wants to be homeless, but to have a compassionate approach to this issue and make sure that we are working with partners and being creative. It takes community input to find the solutions that we need. It's not just one person, and people who are homeless need to be a part of the solution as well. So I recommend that we do outreach and get creative, because this is a growing issue. Thank you.
Suzanne, what are some strategies you might bring to the table to help better address affordable housing and or homelessness?
So currently, the Planning Commission is looking at accessory dwelling units to facilitate affordable housing. They're also talking about providing incentives to builders to, so they'll have a percentage of affordable housing in their construction projects. So there are a number of things that are already part of the city's strategy for affordable housing. I think there are always new ideas that can inform what we're doing. In terms of homelessness, I'm a volunteer at Mary's Place, and so I know a lot about homelessness as well as their challenges with finding affordable housing. One thing I've learned from Mary's Place is that homelessness is a complex issue, and it relies heavily on community and community services. Often we'll find homes for folks only to find out 6 months later they lost the homes because they couldn't keep a job, because they had mental illness issues that weren't being taken care of, or child care issues. So homelessness is a very complex issue. And I think it is, as Melanie mentioned, something that will be more facilitated by involving partners at the state level as well.
Thank you. This next question is one that every candidate will answer. You'll have 1 minute to answer this question. 1 minute blank on this next one. Having a university in one city is a privilege, and Kenmore is privileged to have Bastyr as a partner and a member of this city. Please tell us one benefit of having Bastyr in this community. Melanie, you're going to start, and we'll go down the table. Milton, you'll go next. What's the benefit to having Bastyr in this community?
Well, Bastyr is a really unique university in that it's geared in natural medicine. It's a progressive space. What it does is it brings a mindset, a creative, intellectual mindset to our community, and I think that's a real benefit. I'd like to list several things that I think are benefits, because one of the benefits too is just the beauty of this space. Because, you know, I love this space, the gardens. But, yeah, I would actually say the mindset, the creativity that comes with having a university here is the great benefit. Thank you.
Bill, the benefit to having Bastyr in your community?
So Bastyr is the largest naturopathic university in the United States, and so I would say it gives us recognition. We have people from the whole country who focus on Kenmore, and even internationally. They have a lot of international students that come here. So it gives Kenmore recognition.
Great.
Bastyr is a wonderful asset to our community. It's one of the largest employers to our community, and a great resource to our local physicians and those who are studying natural medicine. Also, the research that's done here at Bastyr is amongst the forefront in our country, and it's exciting. I think it's a real privilege to have Bastyr in our community, and a real asset. And I have to say, my former physician, who's now super specialized, also has taught here at Bastyr. So I'm really impressed with the quality of the skill set that's provided to our local community and the resources of educational lessons for our community. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to start with the fact that I have a fairly intimate relationship with Bastyr. I had the privilege of having him adjust my back when he had his clinic up at Capitol Hill. And I won't talk about his secretary. So I also went, was part of the science program, which was developed by Dr. Bradford, and that was in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I got my Bachelor of Science degree. I did not go on the vision clinic experience there. The advantage of having Bastyr here is that we are able to have input in bringing the best of what is science, bringing the best of what is education, and bringing the best of the human resources available to this area. And those human resources will be part of our future. Amen. That's it.
So of course I agree with what everybody else said, and they've all taken some of my thunder. One of the things I like about Best Year, and it's something that we talk about a lot in Kenmore, is place making. And I think that Best Year really embodies what we're trying to do with Kenmore. It's innovation and harmony with the environment. So I feel really proud to have Best Year here. I had also a kind of a quirky personal relationship with Best Year, in that a colleague who lives in Florida, who's an MD, had just decided to move to Kenmore because of Best Year. So the reputation is widely known, and it's something that I'm proud of as a Kenmore resident.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next series of questions. We're going to begin this time. Milton, you'll start. The theme of this series of questions is transportation, and each position will have a different question. We're back to a 2-minute response, so you'll have a little bit of time to talk to us about your position. So Milton, a private water taxi service has been proposed to operate on Lake Washington and potentially include a stop in Kenmore. What role should the city play, if any, in supporting such a proposal?
So the water taxi, I actually got to go through the water taxi that goes down to Renton as a little test run. My concern with the water taxi is how many people will it actually get downtown for the amount of money expended. And so it's really a cost-benefit consideration. So I think the city of Kenmore should definitely support the studies, because right now I don't think I have enough information to be able to strongly support it or oppose it. I think we need more information. So the city needs to help get that information, encourage that to happen, and I know there are other people in control, but we can at least support that.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to position 7. Karina, you'll go first this time. Sound Transit is working to deliver bus rapid transit service to State Route 522. How can the city, Sound Transit, and local businesses best work together to collaborate on this project? I'll read that one more time. Gives you a little bit of time to think while I do that. Sound Transit is working to deliver bus rapid transit service to State Route 522. How can the city, Sound Transit, and local businesses best work together to collaborate on this project? You have 2 minutes.
It's amazing the work that's being done on the Sound Transit. There's a lot of work that's happening to our 522 that's evolving, impacting businesses. And we see that further down the road with the Yakima Fruit Market, who's going to have to move, which is what they've been told. I think we're working ahead and working with our stakeholders, our partners, our business owners to help facilitate a healthy transition, including bringing them to the table as being partners in furthering that work is really important and crucial. And you know, we are stuck with this agreement. We have this agreement to maintain our high density housing developments and keep that, you know, metro transit coming through our community. And so that means we have to have sustainable development and high-rise dense housing. And we need to increase our multimodal routes of transportation. But when we work together with our businesses, that's going to mean how do we utilize our space as well. And it's going to take working together with our business partners to do that.
Thank you. Ben, same question.
Yes, I have a somewhat mixed feeling about Sound Transit. I am not particularly happy the way they have managed their resources or their demands that they make on cities like us. On the other hand, though, we do not have a lot of choice. Like we say, in 2040, our population will be double. What concerns me the most is the concept of we bring the bus by and they'll ride it. That is problematic, and I don't believe has always been the truth. So we were going to have to work closely with Sound Transit. We're going to have to work very closely with our business neighbors, because a lot of them are going to be affected by what's coming, the changes that will be brought on by increased ridership, increased transit, bus rides, sorry, lost words. So yeah, I think it's going to be problematic. I think it's may be a little hydraulic. I would like to have opportunity, hopefully, to be a calm voice in that debate as it comes along. But this is an issue that we will have to study very carefully on, and we will have to sometimes stand our ground on as best we can as a city versus metro. So,
thank you. Moving to position 1, Melanie, you'll go first on this particular question. What specific policy decisions do you think will best address traffic in and around Kenmore? What specific policy decisions do you think will best address traffic in and around Kenmore?
Well, traffic in and around Kenmore is a major issue. One thing that I've been doing is talking with Rep. Paulette and Rep. Valdez about getting about 405 and 520 tolling mitigation funds for Kenmore to address issues on 522 and 68th Juanita Drive. I think that that's an approach that we can take that can provide some reprieve from the traffic impacts. I also think we can do some, I don't know if this is a policy or not, but study the traffic patterns at our lights, as I've been doorbelling and meeting with neighbors. I keep hearing concerns about slowdown, say at 61st, and traffic through Kenmore heading towards Seattle, up to 61st gets really stacked up, and then it loosens right up to Ballinger Way. And maybe doing some work around studying what the root cause of those timing issues may be. So I think there's a lot we can do. I think, like anything, we need to study what's happening, and policy decisions. I'm trying to think of some other ideas, but a lot of it is making sure our public is informed and understands the impact of what their traffic habits are and patterns are. So, I understand Ben's concerns about people using the bus, but it'd be nice to get more people on it, people using mass transportation, and hopefully maybe working closer to home as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne, same question.
I've also experienced a lot of comments from the public related to traffic while I've been out doorbelling. A lot of the concern that folks have has to do with the density in the city, as well as out in the neighborhoods, the infill, the number of parking places required for apartments and houses and that type of thing. I think that as the City Council and the Planning Commission, looking at how we're approaching parking and requirements related to parking spots in the neighborhoods is one thing we can do. I agree that traffic studies need to occur. We've got a lot of areas where initially there wasn't much traffic, and now that there's tolling, we've got traffic through the neighborhoods, or increased large trucks through areas that didn't accommodate trucks in the past. So when a neighbor had suggested that we have a policy related to the size of trucks going on a particular road. So I think in general we need to look more at the transportation patterns and how that's impacting the community, and determine if new policies are needed or not.
Thank you all. We're going to change themes to the theme of environment, and we have one question. All of you will respond to this question, and you'll all have 1 minute each. How can Kenmore become a regional leader on climate change resiliency, and what will you do to make our city more sustainable? I'm going to read it again. After I've read it, Van, you're going to start this series. How can Kenmore become a regional leader on climate change resiliency, and what will you do to make our city more sustainable? Van, you have 1 minute.
Yes, well, we of course will be having a lot of new development coming in. I think that we do need to model, perhaps after our city council, our city, well, we can model it out here with their dormitories. They're platinum, I believe. I think we do need to inquire and respond to, regardless of what the issues are as far as climate change, we need to respond the best we can. And I do think we need to hold our development to the highest standards possible. And we also need to keep in touch with all that is, with all new research in this area, including various ways of carbon storage in the ground. There's a lot of development going on. We'll see what science can bring us. Hopefully we can solve this problem. In the meantime, we do need to stick with
Thanks,
the
Ben. Karina, how can Kenmore become a regional leader on climate change resiliency, and what will you do to make the city more sustainable?
Well, we really need to continue supporting green initiatives and to be part of a leader in that movement. The city's already kind of taken some initial steps to that with how they developed the City Hall. As we look further to how our community disposes of trash and garbage, China's not buying our garbage anymore, and it's staying here in country. So we really have to utilize smart, innovative approaches to the kind of amount of trash that we produce, as well as disposal. Energy efficiency is going to be important to continuing technology and growth with transportation, and how we grow together with our growth development and cleaning up our sites. We have to protect our salmon runs on our Lake Washington all the way down. So I support green initiatives.
Bill?
I might have a little different view on some of these. I actually think the environmental issues and sustainability are so big, I really think they need to be approached at a regional level. I think we're too small as a city to make a major impact as a leader. I think we can be supportive. I think we can play our role. I think we need to encourage LEED buildings. And one thing that is going to seem a little counterintuitive, but I think it's an issue that the council needs to bring up at their yearly January retreat. If it isn't in the top 5 things, or goals for the city, not much resources is being spent on it. Not much time, not much money. So for it to rise in importance, this council has to make that decision.
This is a big question, hard to answer in a minute, but I can say I am running for our future. The environment is a big reason that I'm running for city council. Things that we can do, we can incentivize solar panels, waste drain heat recovery systems, heat pumps, things that are more energy efficient in new building, as well as incentivize it for our homeowners. So those are things that we can do just right off the top. I also think that habitat restoration is a place that we can provide leadership. This is kind of a longer term look at what we can do for the environment, but stewardship is important. As far as, I do believe that at every level of government, at this time, every person, every place has a role in fighting climate change. As Milton said, our council does need to raise the priority on environmental stewardship, and so that's something I would stand for. Thank you.
I agree also that this is a larger issue and something that needs to be addressed at a regional level. I think the city is already doing a lot to maintain critical areas. in terms of the issues that are coming in front of the Planning Commission and our different regulations related to building. I think that requiring builders to use more sustainable building products is also something we can do. On a smaller level, we've have addressed using plastic bags, and we've got stations for electric cars, and are looking at doing more of those kinds of things. So I think the small things that we do are headed in the right direction, and we need to work at a larger level to implement greater changes.
All right, thank you all. We're going to now switch gears again, and we are at my favorite part of the evening, which is the lightning round phase. This is an opportunity for you to say yes or no to a series of questions that I will pose. And so everyone should get their yes and no cards out. We're going to do a little practice here. So if everyone's ready. You're a moderator, that's me. Yes or no? Looks like Sean Connery. I appreciate the mixed response. Now on to the real question. Is the city of Kenmore financially healthy? Do you support Tim Iman's initiative 976 for a $30 car tab? Do you support the North Shore Parks and Recreation Service Area Levy, Proposition 1, benefiting the North Shore Senior Center? Have you been on the Cascadia or UW-Bothell campus in the last 6 months? I'll be watching some of you. Do we need more sidewalks in Kenmore? Would you consider additional business taxations within the city as a means of offsetting any future budget shortfalls? Do you support Kenmore's proposal to renovate the ball field at St. Edward's State Park? Would you consider bringing a company that offers electric scooters into the city like has been done in Bothell? Did the city respond well to the snowstorm earlier this year in February? Would you support creating legislation to bring a casino to Lake Point? Do you think Lake Point will start its development within the next 5 years? Will the Huskies win the Apple Cup?
Abstain.
That concludes our speed round. Thanks, everybody. You can see why it's the most fun part of the night, right? Fortunate to a corner. We're going to continue on our series of 1-minute questions, and every candidate will answer the same question. In this next series, we are going to start with Suzanne. We're going to jump around a little bit now so that we can not just go up and down the road, but go around the candidates. So first will be Suzanne, and Melanie, you're on deck for this question. Over the last decade or more, our community has grown increasingly diverse. How will you work to make Kenmore, to help it continue to become more welcoming and inclusive? I'll read it again. Over the last decade or more, our community has grown increasingly diverse. How will you work to help Kenmore continue to be a welcoming and inclusive place? Suzanne first, Melanie on deck.
I think currently Kenmore is doing a lot to make this a welcoming place. Just recently I was at a listening session that was all about diversity and what we can do in our area to improve that and to broaden understanding between different folks. So I feel like we're already headed in the right direction. There are a lot of programs that are being initiated in different groups. In the senior center, we've got programs that are geared towards expanding diversity and welcoming more folks to the senior center. With the Heritage Society, we're broadening our programming to include a more diverse group. So I think in general, the groups that I'm involved in are making that headway.
Melanie, you're up, and Karina, you're on deck.
I think one thing that we can do to make our city more inclusive is to really encourage people from some of our diverse backgrounds and neighborhoods to be running for city council and participating on the boards of our commissions. I'd really like to see that. So I think that's going to take some outreach, going directly into the communities and being very welcoming in that way. I think that's actually a really top issue, because I think when we want to include people, the people we need to want to include need to be included. You know, there's got to be some connection there. So that's something I'd really like to see in the next 4 years, is a more participation at those levels. Thank you.
Karina, you're up, and Van, you're on deck.
You know, working together to foster our and welcome our diverse communities is important, and that means celebrating our intersectionality and recognizing our own biases. Everybody has implicit bias, they do, and you to be able to identify that, you have to learn about it first. To do it well in the council, we really have to start with education within the council, and that includes diversity and equity training, to have better policies and language to support our community. It's going to take family and community outreach, and we have to do more within our community on our housing issues that unintentionally redline part of our own community. It's unfortunate. We are growing together as a community. We see that in a more welcoming LGBTQ accepting the community of the council and working together with our surrounding community, but everybody in, nobody out.
Was that? No. I'm sorry. There we go. First time in years I've seen our time make a mistake with the card. All right.
I see
Van, you're next.
diversity as a cultural issue. I agree with Karina, we do have biases. The issue is, are we willing to look at those biases? The issue is, are we going to, as a city council, facilitate the education of our people in whatever way we can to look and say, yes, everybody is a single person. They live, they die as an individual. They deserve a right to housing regardless of their association. They deserve the right to their own autonomy, to be able to make their own decisions, and to be supported within the community by all costs, by all means that are available to us.
Bill, we'll wrap this one up.
So several things come to mind. One is our school district is very desirable, has a great variety, diversity. Another one is sports. I have 9 grandkids, and so I get to a lot of soccer games, basketball games, and other sports events. The mix is amazing. The number of Hispanics and Asians, and there's Caucasians. It's just the mix, and they play together. They're on the same team. I think the more we can encourage sports is one way that people can actually get to know each other. And then events. I go to the different, like the music in the park and the movies, and I just wander around and I talk to people. There's a lot of people that are new to Kenmore, and a lot of variety of people coming from all over the country. So I think we're making some progress.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next 1-minute question. Everyone will respond. Milton, you'll go first this time. Van, you're on deck. I'll read the question twice. What would your primary approach be to addressing a budget shortfall for the city of Kenmore? Raising taxes, cutting spending, a mixture? Please describe where you might find reductions in expenditures and where you might seek to increase revenue. I'll ask again. What would your primary approach be to addressing a budget shortfall for the city of Kenmore? Raising taxes, cutting spending, a mixture of both? Please describe where you might find reductions in expenditures and where you might seek to increase raise revenue. You'll have 1 minute.
So, budget ultimately comes back to your priorities. So if you have 5 things that are really important and another 5 that are pretty important, you can't have 20 more ideas that you're spending money on. So you need to stay focused on what you've decided your city's gonna spend time and money on. I would have a mixed approach. We've worked pretty hard the last several years to try to decrease our expenses, but there's probably always improvement we can make. This is personally one person just speaking, I would probably cut the ball fields at the full ball field improvement at St. Edward. I think that would save a lot of money. And I think there's some room to increase some utility taxes and a few other things if we needed to, because there are state limits, and we're well under those limits in several situations.
Dan, you're up. Suzanne, you're on there.
Okay. Yes, cutting expenses is very difficult. I agree with Milton, we do have to have that priority guidelines. You know, what's our first, what's our second, what's our third? We cannot satisfy all needs, we cannot satisfy all people, but we must do what is necessary. So it is priority. As far as the ball fields, I see the ball fields as if I don't oppose the ball fields. When I was a kid, we went up there and we played the potholes, etc. And I know it's quite different these days, and so it's left to play. If we had finance from other regions, from other sources, yes, I would support those ball fields. But that is what's necessary. So it would be a mixed approach. I would have to look at taxes. It is a possibility that I would raise them slightly if it was fair. That is it. We have to be balanced. We can't be in the red.
Thank you, man. Suzanne, you're up. Karina, you're on there.
I agree that it's really important to prioritize. This was a topic of the last city council meeting, and one of the things that I really thought was impressive is the amount of time they spent talking about how they're going to get citizen input for these decisions. I think that's critical. We are going to have to make some tough decisions. I think that taking an innovative approach to a variety of expenses, Dan mentioned the ball fields and potentially working out ways to collaborate with other organizations on that. I think that kind of thing is good. I think we are going to have to make some cuts, but I think getting the citizens involved is what's critical.
Karina, you're up. And Melanie, you're up.
Trimming the fat is never a fun process in anybody's budget. I think we all kind of recognize that at home and when we're balancing our own ends to make sure the ends meet. But a good example is looking at like ball fields. If we were looking at that costly project versus working together with our county region to facilitate the partnering together on grants for the collaborative partnership between schools and community. That would both benefit both schools and community and be able to use multi-use spaces. And it's a win-win. It's an untapped resource, and there's plenty of it in the Dale Constantine's budget. I think big business needs to pay for their impact to our roads. It's not very popular. Some people don't really like the idea of a B&O tax, but quite frankly, we have to pay for our community somehow.
And Melanie.
Yeah, budgets are fun. Not really. But anyway, when we're thinking about how we can meet our budget targets, it's a tough job, and we have to look at what our priorities are for our community. I think when we have to make cuts, we do need to look at things that are wants rather than needs. We need to look at the needs of the people and make sure they're served first. So that would be my priority as far as making assessments. I think we can look at our use of consultants, and maybe wonder if we can look more at using our staff to help us with budget decisions and planning. I know we're doing a really good job, but I think consultants are expensive. I would also say I'd be willing to work with our state and federal representatives and county to see what we can do to bring more funds to Kenmore. You know, work collaboratively to see where we can find resources that we might not know exist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're switching back to the position by position question. The theme for this round of 2-minute questions and answers is growth. And we are going to start with position 1. Suzanne, you'll get to go first, followed by Melanie. You both have the opportunity to answer this question. I'll read it twice. What role do you believe local government should play in economic development? And what are 3 things you might do to help further local economic growth and vitality? What role do you believe local government should play in economic development? And what are 3 things you would do to help further local economic growth and vitality? You have 2 minutes.
Kenmore has done a very good job of supporting economic growth. Nancy Owsley, the assistant city manager, was in the newspaper interview related to the business incubator, which is a very good resource in the city for fostering new businesses and supporting economic development. In addition to that, we have a very strong Kenmore Business Alliance and Chamber, and the city supports those. I think that's also something that will bring new businesses to the area. We've also offered incentives for different companies to come and build here. We've made Kenmore a more popular place. You see it now in various magazines and newspapers. It's a place that people want to come to. They want to raise their kids here. So I think all of those kinds of things that the city is doing are going to foster growth and economic development.
I'd agree with Suzanne. I think Kenmore's doing a really great job fostering growth and development. One thing that I think the city can do is continue to work towards being a more people-oriented place and engage the community at a bit more of a grassroots level of what we want the city to look like. One thing that we can do is be more flexible with zoning. So looking at the zoning for buildings. For example, when 192 opened, we were very flexible with the parking zoning there. So looking at making things a little bit more accessible for our small businesses to open. Thinking about considering how expensive rents are today. What is it going to take for a small business to start and be able to afford to get going in a storefront? So, future economic growth and vitality. I think it's important for us to really think about what the character of Kenmore is and to maintain it. And that does mean community engagement and opening doors. So, one thing that I did was I held a meeting a few weeks ago on strong towns, looking at traditional growth patterns and testing for interest in that. Because it does take creativity for us to make these things happen, and the input of many actually helps to make these improvements. Is that a 2-minute? Sorry.
30 seconds.
I lost my time. I was stuck on 1 minute. Anyway, I think local input makes a difference, and we can do a lot. But I really think that making this a people-oriented place where we can walk places and have shops and opportunities for people to come together is really important. Thank you.
We throw you these curveballs with different time limits just to see how you can adapt.
All right.
Okay, moving on to Milton. You'll answer this question. Same theme of growth and a little bit different version of the question. How can we help our small businesses grow, and what are some of the most impactful things that could help businesses thrive in Kenmore? How can we help our small businesses grow, and what are some of the most impactful things that could help businesses thrive in Kenmore?
So I would say being flexible on some of the rules that we apply, like we did for the Brew District, that if we ask them to do every single impact fee, they wouldn't be there. So a lot of old businesses, or new businesses rather, will not be able to go into brand new building. It's too expensive. You know, startup businesses, young businesses, small businesses, they need to be using the recycled space, which means we need to be creative as a city to figure out how to solve the problems that a new business just can't afford all the impact fees, the park, the road, the other fees that go along with it. So I would say that's probably the way I think we could be the most helpful for each business, each area of the city to say, what can we do to modify those rules? One of my jokes is, as long as the city made the rules, we can change them. Rules that are imposed on us from state, we don't have any say, but if we invented the rule, it means we can change it if the council has the will to do it.
Okay, and for Karina and Van, Karina, you'll go first. You each have 2 minutes. Should short-term rentals be better regulated? Should they have to obtain a business license or pay lodging tax? So should short-term rentals, Airbnb for example, should that be regulated, and should those businesses have to obtain a business license or pay lodging tax?
I personally don't feel that Airbnbs need to be regulated yet in Kenmore. I know that there's been one rare instance of an issue with a party house, let's say, but I do believe that, you know, one owns one's own property, and whether you are, you know, in a hospital or on vacation or serving or in our military, you know, it's nice to have a source of revenue and income to pay your home mortgage with. So I support AVs. I think it's a vital piece to our community. I think it's something we can grow into and grow with further down the road. I think we're a little too new and young in it, but I think the only way that we can support our local community and growing and not becoming continued fostering further homelessness is to give people an opportunity to pull themselves up with the bootstraps. And sometimes that's, you know, renting out your extra room in your home, or it's, you know, renting out your condo or townhouse for a short-term, you know, piece of time. So that's where I'm at that issue.
Dan?
Yeah, I too don't believe that Airbnbs should be regulated, but I do believe that before they come in, that we do need to discuss with them the enforcement of our laws here in Kenmore. I think the party house thing needs to be stopped. That is really an abuse of the whole Airbnb principle. As far as regulation and taxes, I do not believe people need to be burdened by the paperwork and whatever troubles they need to go through. So Airbnb, it is a good thing, but the legal enforcement of our laws, not allowing drinking, partying, underage drinking, partying, etc. at Airbnbs, I don't think can be permitted, and we need to start to discuss with them, like I said before, to enforce our laws and not allow misbehavior like this, especially for under 21-year-old population.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are going to move into questions from our audience tonight. And so through miracle of modern technology, I've been fed some cards, and we're going to ask these questions. Again, we're going to hop around the panel tonight, and I'll let you know who's up and who's on deck for these 3 questions. You'll have 1 minute each to answer the questions, and every candidate will answer the question. The first one, and it was interesting to get this one because I think sometimes we forget we get into the complicated details of city council and need to maybe come up a little bit in altitude. So the first question, and Karina, you're going to start. Melanie, you're on deck. What do you believe the main role is of city council? What is the main role of city council?
Okay. The main role of City Council is really about policy, procedure, ordinances, and zoning, and it's about conducting the business and legislative network that we must do to keep that thriving community going. But we have to be mindful. We have to work with our stakeholders, our businesses, and our residents, and bringing them to the table and listening to their concerns and representing their concerns is part of our duty. So it's not just about us, it's about we. And when we're working with businesses, we must bring our businesses together and work collaboratively at the table to develop smart, innovative technologies, smart, innovative policy procedures, and thoughtful mindset for growth.
Melanie, you're up. You're on there. What's the main purpose of city council?
I think the main purpose of city council is to represent the people of our community, of our city, and make our decisions with that in mind. I hate to be too high level on that, but we need to reach out to our community. We need to be voices and represent the needs of our people, and of course our businesses as well. So that's where I'm going to put that. Thank you.
Milton, you're up. Suzanne, you're on deck.
So I would say, like I mentioned before, setting priorities and goals. We can't do that without listening to our citizens and our businesses. Those priorities and goals get turned into reality through a budget. So the budget process is really important. And the other thing is we hire a city manager. And that is one of the most important things we do.
Suzanne, you're up. Dan, you're on deck.
I believe the most important thing for the city council is to create a safe environment for our citizens. I think everything comes out of creating that environment, whether it's setting policy, having a healthy budget, listening to the citizens, but it all comes down to having a safe environment, and that will create a thriving community.
Okay. Well, I will start the role of city council with being, starting my own platform, which is public safety, preserving our open spaces and housing affordability. As a city council, we need to maintain and really hold on to what our primary goals are while we problem solve and mitigate what comes underneath that. But I feel like one role of the city council, we need to educate the people, and we need, I think, a better way of doing so. I don't have anything to offer at the moment, but certainly our journalism folks have a strong role in that. Wow, we also have to set policy fair and equal, and we need to have a balanced budget. Once we walk into the red, it's like in the old Tarzan movies, walking into quicksand, down you go. So.
On this next question from our audience, Milton, you'll begin. Suzanne, you'll go second. What area or neighborhood in Kenmore do you think needs a little more love or attention from the city? What area or neighborhood in Kenmore do you think needs a little more love from or attention from the city?
I would say the TOD, which stands for Transit Oriented District. So it's an area down around St. Vincent de Paul, down to the Park and Ride. So it's an area that has the capacity to house a lot of people, make some of it affordable, have great transportation to Seattle especially, but also the east side. We've done some things as a council to try to entice developers to come, and it hasn't worked so far. So I think it has a huge potential, and right now it's very underutilized. So that would be the neighborhood that I would want to focus on.
Suzanne?
to agree with Milton on that. That whole area is underutilized, and I think that that's where we need to look for affordable housing, for housing that supports transit. We've got mobile homes in that area that we've been trying to deal with, and I think in general that's an area that needs some tender loving care.
Dan, you're up. Melanie, you're on deck.
Yeah, one area that constantly on my mind we live close to is the trailer parks on 182nd. Seem to be a diverse Hispanic community. I'm not sure the diversity of the trailer park itself. I think we really need to reach out to those people, and the city council has been doing a good job of that. But in the end, that land is held by private ownership, and its fate will be determined by the laws of our state and free enterprise. But we do need to make sure those people have every chance in the world to make a transition, and we need to do everything possible to mitigate that transition if and when it happens. And again, also transportation-oriented districts along 522. We definitely look closely at those areas because that's prime property for it.
Thank you. Melanie, you're up. Karina, you're on deck.
I'd agree. The area along the transit-oriented district is the area that I think does need the most attention at this time. I also think there's opportunity. We're already doing, as much as we're doing development along the Brook Gilman Trail, I don't know if it's development, but where the Brewery Row is, there's opportunity there to kind of expand businesses along that corridor and housing as well. So I think I'd also look at that. Thank you.
So I have to agree with everybody else here. On either side of 522, within a couple blocks, we really do have unsafe, well, not very walkable neighborhoods. We've improved lighting in these areas. Transportation along these roads are high traveled areas. We need to improve that pedestrian safety route. Quite frankly, these are social economic issues, and there's nothing wrong with people who are poor and only able to live in a mobile home park. That's just the reality of our community, and it's a part of our responsibility. We can look at solutions with beautification, and we could work with nonprofit partners. We can use arts to incorporate part of that. We can work with Eagle Scouts. I've heard some of the most offensive things from parts of our community. Just don't want to see the poor corridor of our community or people who are struggling. It's heartbreaking.
Our third question from the audience tonight. Van, you'll start. Melanie, you're on deck. You have 1 minute again. How will you commit to keeping city council discussion and decisions transparent and accessible to the public? How will you commit to keeping city council discussion and decisions transparent and accessible to the public?
Well, I believe there is transparency. We do need to probably promote our city website a little bit more, to educate people that it's there, to educate people that there is a lot of information on there. So we have, I believe the city has done everything it can to make things transparent. I think what we need to do is educate the population, educate our citizens to know where to look and know where to find that information. And a lot of it basically is going to depend on the citizens taking their effort to take time to look at our website and to bring up issues if they feel there are issues where we're not communicating clearly. They need to do that. There needs to be a vehicle for them to do that. So.
Melanie, you're up. Karina, you're on deck.
I
do think that the city of Kenmore does a good job being transparent, especially with the online video access to our city council meetings. So I think as far as being transparent there, we're in good shape. I think a couple things that we can do to make it more accessible. Maybe one item would be to offer free childcare at city council meetings, so parents have easier access to them. Also, I think we could, I've heard, at least when I was knocking doors, that we might be able to offer more translation services so that people can understand what's being said at the council meetings. And maybe we can go out into the community more. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I know that the Port of Seattle does outreach like that, going to specific communities to be more accessible. So those are the suggestions that I would have. Thank you.
Karina, you're up, and Suzanne, you're on deck.
I think the city is fostering some great transparency with their meetings. I actually used to go to the city meetings and blog live from the meeting, and then post to Facebook even later when the meetings weren't shared via recording until maybe 10 or 12 days later. Where we could grow is making our committee meetings available to the public. Who are those stakeholders who sit at the table? Do we include others outside of the city? Those are questions that community asks. Translation services are really important. We are not just a community of English-speaking persons. We have a high community of Spanish individuals and Chinese individuals and Korean population. And so as we're recording our meetings, they do need to have some transcription. It's just a responsibility to supporting our diversity in our community and connecting together with our community. Yeah.
Suzanne, you're up. You're on there.
I agree that the city does a lot to facilitate transparency. Everyone who's within the city has taken classes on open public meetings and understands what it is to be a transparent organization. One of the things Kenmore does really well is survey the public, and I know from being out talking to citizens, they have a lot of different ideas or ways they'd like to access information. So I think understanding more clearly whether it's childcare or something else, that would be good. The city has implemented some hearing impaired improvements with the council. I think that's the first step towards also providing translation services. But I think getting out in the neighborhoods and understanding how people want to receive information would be most beneficial.
So I've been on the council long enough to see the transition. And it's sometimes like when you look at 522, you say, oh, it looks about the same. When you remember with no sidewalks, all those wires everywhere. So things I've seen change. We have the 3-minute public time at every single council meeting. We have coffee with the council twice a month. We record the council meetings, including retreats. We have our newsletter, social media. We do a lot of topical related surveys and open houses. So there's never enough communication. I mean, you can say, you know, a major thing is happening and your neighbor will say, I never heard of that. And so there's always room for more communication. I totally understand that. But I think we're making progress, and really the council cares, like to some of the upcoming sustainable budget issues we're talking about. We're trying to figure out how can we really get the public involved. So it's one of the first things that comes to mind with every major topic.
Thank you. Our last 1-minute question of the evening. Karina, you'll start. Van, you're on deck. How could the city best work with the school district when it comes to a severe weather incident? How could the city best work with the school district when it comes to a severe weather incident?
Good communication is the key to working with the school district. And whether we are having road blockages, inaccessible routes, we need to be able to communicate that further out. I mean, it's important to our families that their children travel safely to school and that they have a safe pickup site or safe drop-off site. And you know, our piece in working together with North Shore, we've had improvements with the utility district we have in snow plowing. And in some cases, it's actually aided the district when they were down a plow, for example. So we can serve as part of our community, so the kids are continuing their education to receive well. But you know, roads do get washed out, and giving that notice as soon as possible instead of later is important. And it is a partnership.
Van, you're up. Suzanne, you're on deck.
Yeah, I think communication actually is prime, and what we need to do is to have a specific point person on both the city side and the school side that are responsible for communicating with each other, and they can lead the communication process. I think the school district is probably the first people we need to call and make contact with, and let them know, because they have a lot of things they have to work with as far as busing and that sort of thing. It is, vital, I think, also somehow getting online with the public, letting them know what the roads are open, what the road conditions are, maybe even work with federal when there's news service that everybody's aware. Do you need change? Do you not need change?
Suzanne, you're up. Melanie, you're on deck.
I agree that community is key. I think there needs to be established procedures around how that communication is going to happen. Again, I think outreach to the community to find out how they want to receive that information, whether it's a text message. Some people may not have access to text messages, television, phone recordings. What if they don't have access to any of that? How's the word going to get out? The main concern is safety again, and I think probably more needs to be done in terms of establishing procedures and ensuring that everyone involved is able to find out what the situation is and have a safe resolution.
Melanie, you're up. Milton, you're on deck.
That's an interesting question. My kids are in North Shore schools right now, and I find that the school district is incredibly communicative about weather emergencies or anything along those lines. So I'm very stuck on this mindset of how I'm getting the information, which is from the schools. And this question is, what's the relationship between the cities and the schools? It's really important to have point contacts, and for the city and the school district to be in communication during weather emergencies or natural disaster. We need to be prepared and in communication on how we're going to move through those emergencies. Safety plans need to be in place. I genuinely hope they are. I'm optimistic there. But anyway, that's what I mean, I agree with everyone. We need to have clear communication between the two, the school district and the city. Thank you.
So being prepared ahead of time is obviously the key. We had a report from the fire department last night on our emergency response system. There's a command center that's set up. The city could do it. We have the space, but we've decided that we would work better as a region to use the one at the fire department. So we, again, work with other partners, work with other people. The systems are already in place. We're ready for big earthquakes. We're ready for all sorts of major events. And I think, as I remember from last night's report, the command center has only been initiated twice, and it was both for snow. So that seems to be a theme. The other thing is, now that our public works department is in-house, run by Kenmore alone, I think we're going to get a much higher level of service.
Thank you to all of the candidates for taking the questions from the audience and answering the variety of questions we've prepared for you tonight. You're now going to have 2 minutes to wrap up, and we'll be starting with Van and working our way this way back along the table. And in your concluding remarks, you're welcome to talk about any subject for which maybe you weren't asked a question that you'd like to talk about, and anything more that you want to add to your position as a candidate for council. You'll have 2 minutes each. Van?
Yeah. First thing I want to talk about is homelessness and affordable housing. Some affordable housing is not all I used to sit, on his step with him, share a few Chesterfields and talk. He was an old man, but he was full of wisdom. He was intelligent. He was a wonderful person, and we need to change our attitude towards the poor and the homeless, and really look at working them into the community. Now, I realize also homelessness needs to be divided into two groups of people. There are homeless people that want to use whatever we can give them to better their lives, and there are homeless people that choose to be homeless because that's their way of life. They don't want to give up to drugs or etc. For those people, we sometimes will need to make the choice for them. I want to also say that our Kenmore here is a gem that we really need to take care of. Our open spaces are beautiful. We will continue to develop access to those and maintain their beauty. And as far as safety, let's talk about parking. I know parking is a very difficult issue. I think very much so that we have to really look at, in the future, our agreements with developers as far as how many parking spaces are made available, etc. So yes, I want to look forward. I want to be a part of this city. I love this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Karina.
Just want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. It's an amazing opportunity we have here today to address you and to see the amount of civic engagement that's here. It's a beautiful thing. Like I said in the beginning, I've lived here for 30 years and I love this community. I'm so proud to have raised my kids here. I really can't think of anywhere else I want to live. So I want to see Kenmore continue to grow and thrive, and we do that with thoughtful, mindful consideration with all things we do. If elected, I want to serve the people of Kenmore that way. And I'm proudly endorsed by our state senator, Senator David Fraught, Representative Jerry Paulette, Representative Valdez, our U.S. Congresswoman Susan Zelbene, our Attorney General Bob Ferguson, and leading organizations like Sierra Club, Equal Rights Washington, NARAL, and National Women's Political Caucus, and the Victory Fund, and many others. And so I just want to add that I have experience in policy and legislation, working together with our local, regional, and state electeds on formation of policy and legislation, whether it's grants and grant writing. I have those chops and ready to bring those to the table to work together with our partners. It takes 4 votes to get any one thing passed. And it's a learning curve to get started. Why not have somebody who's ready to go out the gate?
I'll keep my comments short. I've enjoyed so much being on council. At one point when I was working with Evergreen, I worked 70 hours a week over there. People said, are you going to stop that city council thing? I said, no, I'm having too much fun. Why would I want to stop that? And I really love learning new things, whether it's water quality, whether it's transportation, whether it's bridges that are failing. There's always something new to learn and be creative. I think I have a reputation of trying to be a person who finds the middle ground. Sometimes if we all get 80% of what we want, that's good enough. You don't have to have everything you want. So I try to compromise as much as possible and come to solutions that are going to be best for our city.
Thank you. Melanie.
I'm going to close with a little story that encapsulates why I'm running for city council. Back in May, I think it was the day after I filed for the office, I was driving my daughter and her 2 friends home from driver's ed. And I actually really like driving them. It's kind of fun listening on their conversations. Except on this day, the conversation was a little bit different. My daughter's friend was telling a story about how she had gone for a walk with her mom. And while she was on that walk, she found 2 deer just standing in the road. And here's what she said. She said, yeah, so I was walking with my mom, and I saw 2 deer. They were just standing there, just looking around. They had nowhere to go. You see what had happened? Their land, their habitat had been destroyed the day before. They had nowhere to go. And then this girl said, she said, yeah, so me and my mom, when we saw that, we understood what happened, and we looked at each other and cried. You see, this 16-year-old girl and her mom understand the impact of human-induced habitat destruction and climate change. And when they saw it happen in their neighborhood, they were incredibly sad. It makes me sad too. Anyway, so as I was driving, I slowed down, I pulled over, and I looked at those girls, the 3 girls sitting in my car. I said, this is exactly why I'm running for office. Our planet matters. Your voice matters. You have the power to make a difference for our future. This is something I finally learned at about 48 years old. I want these girls to know it for the rest of their lives. We live in a critical time, and we need to give attention to the climate. And at our local government level, we can make a difference. I'm going to vote and make decisions based on that. Thank you.
And Suzanne, you'll wrap this up.
I've spent the last 3 years completely dedicated to Kenmore and the community. I've been involved with the Senior Center, and that's individuals at all ages, including developmentally disabled, programs related to affordable housing and senior services. I've been involved with the Kenmore Heritage Society, introducing new programs that are more diverse and more inclusive, multi-generational. I've been on the Planning Commission where we've made decisions that help the community, again, in terms of affordable housing and permitting, we talked about that earlier, and also preserving our environment in critical areas. I've worked also with Mary's Place and understand the homeless situation. I have extensive experience with collaboration, working with budgets as an executive, and I bring all of this experience to the community. I often have folks ask me, how do you find time for all of this? You're involved in everything. We see your name everywhere. And my response to them is, I'm just getting started.
Would the audience help me thank these candidates for giving me time? I also want to take a moment to thank Cascadia and Utah, Bothell, and Bastyr are all members of the Chamber of Commerce, and together we came together under the leadership of the Chamber to be able to offer this forum tonight. We continue to do this as a service to our community because we believe it's important that folks are civically engaged. So I also appreciate you for being here tonight and taking advantage of this. I hope you'll share with others that this is available, this video, on the Chamber website. Once again, thank you to the candidates